Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our 2-part interview with our very special guest, Brandon Hunter of SurPro Stilts. I'm your host, once again, Nick Harmon. Brandon comes to us from his beautiful mountain retreat in North Bend. North Bend is up by Seattle, Washington. Brandon is working with SurPro now, but he has been instrumental figure in the drywall industry for the past 30 years. We talk about that, and we talk about the benefit of connecting with clients. We discuss no coat, some, and coming onto the drywall scene and the marketing that he's experienced and been involved with. We talk about marketing strategy, and we also talk in depth about stilts and stilt safety.
I mean, there's been, there's some old-fashioned pictures out there, from the early 1900s, actually before that, of people wearing stilts, right? They originated in France. They used to use stilts to stay out of their bogs and marshes, right? So to feed their cattle, their swine, their horses, their cows, whatever, their sheep, right?
Oh,
they
that's
would walk
funny.
on big wooden stilts, right?
Yeah.
Through the bogs and the
Through
marshes.
the muck. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So sur is actually, I think, a French word for superior or, these kinds of things. So anyway, it's interesting.
Love this conversation with Brandon. If you haven't listened to part 1, episode 99 of the Drywall Podcast, I suggest you do so, and you'll get a good background of Brandon and where we take off in this episode. The Drywall Podcast was brought to you today by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. You can get Fresco Harmony products from our good friends up in Canada at CSR. Find out more at csrbuilding.com, or if you're in the United States, you can check us out at www.frescoharmony.com. If you'd like to try the product, you can reach out to me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. We'll get you hooked up with a free sample pack. But for now, Brandon Hunter on the 102nd episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. Well, that's a lovely setting.
Hey.
We got Brandon Hunter, SurPro Stilts, part 2. I assume you're still working for SurPro Stilts. As we learned in the last episode, Brandon bounces around a lot.
Well,
he's done a lot. He's thick.
I wouldn't say I bounce around a lot. I mean, I just been around for a long time. I think I was with Allwall for 10 years. And then I started, after I left Allwall, I started working with a lot of the manufacturers that we represented. Columbia Tools being one of them.
Yep.
But a lot of people, Marshalltown.
How have you been?
Man, I'm good. We're settling into the new place over here. Been doing some fishing, a lot of work. A lot of work, but I pretty much work out of the house. I go on some road trips for work sometimes. We go visit some contractors, get out on the job, do some demos, do some training, these kinds of things.
Do you like doing that? Do you like going and traveling around for your work?
The best part about it is just meeting people, contractors, sharing, just getting to know people and seeing the jobs, like what's going on, right? You never know exactly what you're walking into. oftentimes we'll show up and it's a huge skyscraper, by the largest energy company in the US. And, it's a drywall project that's been going on for years. They might not have, they might have one elevator running, if we're lucky, right? Or it's a hospital project, big Kaiser hospital project, or student housing, these kinds of things. It seems to be a lot of the big jobs that need the most support. It's like the smaller jobs, smaller residential stuff. I mean, these guys are burning and churning. They're in and out. They kind of know what they're doing. There's not as much going on. However, we've over the years, I've worked with smaller contractors that, contractors do all kinds of jobs. A lot of them will do anything from the small stuff to the big stuff, which makes it cool. It's always interesting. You never know what you're going to come up against. But in my local town here, I worked with a guy named Brian from Seattle Mudworks. They do all kinds of stuff. So oftentimes what I would do is, reach out to the contractors that are closest kind of to me, and I know they have work in the area. Mayor Drywall is another one. They're probably the oldest drywall company here in Seattle. Pretty big outfit, sizable. They do everything. They're always busy. But getting to know those guys.
Yeah, we talked a little bit in the first episode about customer service. So these are techniques or tactics, I would say. I don't want to use the word tactic because building relationships, I feel like, is an honest endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk strategy and this and that. Honestly, it comes down to just trying to be your authentic self. Mm-hmm. If you're honest about, if you're trying hard to bring your skills, what you have to the table, and be humble about what you don't know, but what you're willing to learn. And you can pretty much, most people can kind of figure it out, right? I mean, so as far as strategy is concerned, what is strategy? Define that. So to define that, well, every business has some goals, right? They've got some goals, and it's mostly, well, how are you going to achieve those goals? And you want to be your most authentic self. You want to be honest. You want everybody on your team to share, right? Honestly, not try to be something that they're not, so that you can utilize people's skill set where they belong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody's the best at everything, right?
Right.
I mean, we got to.
I've found with Fresco Harmony, my competitors would be like, I'm not so busy that I have to have a phone department handling calls. I can just answer the fucking phone. And to me, I feel like that's so huge. And
you're small, you're nimble, you're approachable. Yes. You care more about Fresco Harmony than anybody else at this point, right? Now, as you grow, which is hard to do, I'd be looking for people that they might not know anything about drywall. They might not know anything about textures and coating. And the most important thing is that you get people that can make good decisions, good business decisions, good decisions. They make smart decisions. They just, when they're shown a few different options and ways to go, right, that they choose kind of the best one, right? It doesn't really matter what they know now, because you can teach them that, but you need people that you can count on, that you can rely on, Everybody's going to screw up.
Yeah.
The real t-shirt says shit happens, right? And we all know that, but you want people that can make good decisions on the fly, people that will protect your relationship with your customers, and people that add true value to your customers. So, like, you're small enough, you're
Yeah.
nimble enough, you're the one guy who really cares, wants to make your product a success in the hands of whomever's using it. So you're
Yeah.
willing to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, show them how to use it, talk through all the benefits, be accessible. This is how great companies get started, right? It's
Right.
just
Right.
one
Yeah.
guy trying to help another guy out, right?
Yeah. A lot of different skill sets to, not,
Yeah, you won't grow without help, right?
right. Correct.
So you need that customer to give you a shot, give you a chance, be willing to give it a try. They have to slow down their production, right? Because whatever they're doing now, they're doing something. And if they're not doing anything, okay, they got to stop whatever they were doing to, you know, take a closer look, invest a little
Yep.
time into your product. So
Hmm.
it takes somebody else, and hopefully you come up with a win. No coat was a great example. When no coat was getting off the ground, here comes this new paper-faced bead, right? In a world of
Yeah.
metal corner bead. Like, what is this? A laminated paper product?
Do you remember when No Coat came around, and what was your experience around seeing that product? Because I know it wasn't overnight. They still had a tough row to hoe in this industry. Tell me a little bit about your experience seeing No Coat. We don't have to, this doesn't have to be an advertisement on No Coat, but that is an interesting product that came along. People were resistant to it, but it was a good product that
Well,
changed
the inventor,
drywall.
the inventor, the inventor and founder, Tim Smythe, um, he put together a good team around him, guys that had, like my buddy Dave, my friend Dave Scaffold worked for NoCo, and helped get that product as it was like brand new product, get it out there in the market. So Dave did a lot of demos on it and such. He was a face of NoCo in the beginning, big time, on a lot of their videos and that kind of thing. You get it into distribution, like at Grabber, for example. Grabber was selling a lot of no-code in the beginning. A lot of players, in this industry, really cool. That gave me a lot of the hands-on. Honestly, gave me a lot of the hands-on and pro tips. From the simplest thing of spotting nails to putting in archway or whatever. In this case, no coat. What was so cool about no coat was that you didn't have to be a professional, right, that had years of experience taping and finishing to get a perfect inside corner or outside corner.
Okay.
Through a pretty simple process. You could apply it, being super green and new. You could apply it and you could have a straight run. You could straighten out a bad run of hanging with one roll or a stick of no coat.
Sure.
I think it was amazing product. But we could
Why do
just
you think they were able to penetrate this challenging drywall market?
Well, I think that inside corners, outside corners, they're everywhere in
Yeah.
drywall. And if you make it faster, better, easier, professional results, easier, like, you're gonna have a win. It's
Okay.
always about, and you've heard it time and time again, it's about saving time and money, right? But at the same time, getting professional results, right? Everybody wants to save time and money without sacrificing a beautiful look.
Okay, and if you don't know, Brandon is you're a marketing sort of person for SurPro Stilts. Just a little background. If people don't know, you're working with SurPro Stilts right now. You went up to Barry, you gave a bunch of people SurPro Stilts. I talk a lot about business with Brandon because he's a business guy. Go back and listen to episode 99. We talk about Brandon's history with computers, uh, e-commerce, with All Wall, building out All Wall, like all of that. Just a quick background. So when you're talking about going to 5 Ames stores, you're talking about educating these stores on SurPro Stilts and the benefits of selling your product, correct?
Yeah, yep. And I went with somebody else that I work with at SurPro, and basically, um, we just wanted to make sure that all the store managers understood the product, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that Ames reached out to us and wanted, right? So
Okay.
basically, yeah, so we did that. Mm-hmm.
They're already carrying SurPro stilts. Ames is like, hey man, I think we can sell more stilts. Can you guys come out here and talk to and stop me if I'm wrong, at these stores, selling product is like when I go and visit a store that has Fresco Harmony, I don't want to give a hat to the president of the company. I want to give a hat to the dude behind the counter. Because
Dude, let me tell you something.
that's the
Let me
guy
tell you.
selling your product.
So look, I want to do as much positivity for the largest amount of people I can, right? Like that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
I'm constantly looking at, I'm putting myself in other people's shoes. I think that's my number one strength, is that I'm
Sure.
willing to put myself into your shoes and try to think through your looking glass. You, right, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I care about what Nick cares about. How do I care about what Nick cares about in order to best help Nick get what he needs?
Sure.
Right? And just try to like be as honest as I can with that. Like in wherever that leads, hey, if we're both trying to help out, the biggest majority of people are our tribe, the people who actually come back and say, oh Nick, I love Fresco Harmony, right? I
Right,
love it.
right.
It's been this and this for me.
Yeah.
Or the people who come back to their house after like one of your contractors put it
Uh-huh.
in, like they love the results, right? You just want to do more of that naturally because you just saw that you helped 2 people and they're totally stoked about what happened, right? So how can you bring more of that to the world? Like that's it in a nutshell. And if you want to go talk about strategy and how to rule the world and how to crush competitors and do all this and that, then go ahead. But that's not for me. That
I interrupted you though. We were talking about you going into these stores and talking
Yeah,
about
yeah. So check this
Serpro.
out. So
Yeah.
check this out. So it was so cool because honestly, I spent the first part of my career as All Wall before Ames bought All Wall. So Ames
Okay.
was a competitor. Let's
Okay.
like call a spade here.
Yeah.
I mean, All Wall was once a serious competitor to Ames. I'm sure there was no love lost there in the early days, right?
Right.
Eventually, Ames bought All Wall, right? Ames owns Tape Tech as well. And GMS bought Ames. It's public. I don't know if you know GMS, but
Yeah.
they have over 215 locations across the US. Well, they bought All Wall, Ames, and Tape Tech. Sure, I'm working with SurPro, but I've known SurPro since the beginning, right? And these guys, well, since the beginning of my time, much as long as I've known Columbia, right? I've known SurPro. as long
Okay.
as I've known Marshalltown, all these brands that I represented when I was first building the allwall.com website, right? These are relationships that I created, 20 years ago. So SurPro at Allwall, we always loved SurPro, right? We did because in the early days, they just added so much value to the contractor and they were just a good team to work with. They might not have had all the bells and whistles in the beginning. Well, they kind of had more innovation in the beginning. They just have always had a hard time fighting for branding and the recognition that they probably deserved. They added a lot.
Were they always stilts?
They've always had stilts. They have many patents. They started
Okay.
in 1996
Okay.
and they came into the market with some patents that really kind of changed the safety, made stilts a little bit safer,
Okay.
and these kind of things. But they've been at it since 1996, and a lot of the people who use them, they love them, and they are diehard loyalists to the brand. But it's a very competitive space. There's other stilt
Yeah.
manufacturers out there that have been around longer than 1996, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's some old-fashioned pictures out there, from the early 1900s, actually before that, of people wearing stilts, right? They originated in France. They used to use stilts to stay out of their bogs and marshes, right? So to feed their cattle, their swine, their horses, I mean their cows, whatever, their sheep,
Oh,
right? They would
that's
walk
funny.
on big wooden stilts, right,
Yeah.
through the bogs and the
Through the
marshes.
muck. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. So "sir" is actually, I think, a French word for superior or these kinds of things. So anyway, it's
Oh.
interesting. So let's rewind a little bit. SurPro's been in business since 1996. We've sold stilts and we've made stilts for other brands. And I mean, we've been so ultra focused on stilts for such a long time that at this point, I mean, SurPro is the name in stilts. I mean, there's still a few other names out there. Let's not get it twisted. But when I say it that way, it's like I really feel like over the last 20 something years, like SurPro continues to innovate. They do. They make updates, they make some changes, they just keep improving. And I know because in the background of our company, I hear the excitement. I see the new designs coming. I see them coming and saying, hey, check these leg bands out. Hey, check this out. Hey, we need to get this in the field. We need to get it tested. I see what's happening, and I look around the rest of the market, and I see that typically if there's another change that comes out, it's after us. It's after us. It's after they see kind of like, oh, okay, look at what they did. Okay, let's take what they've did and let's try our spin on it. And it's usually one product. They offer one deal. And it doesn't matter. There's a different shoe for everybody out there, right? Not all
Hmm.
shoes fit the same people the same way. So I think that's one thing. But when you come to these stores, it wasn't quite like that because when COVID hit, right? So we weren't just coming in and there's the big SurPro display on display and our stilts are all featured throughout the store. It
Hmm.
wasn't like that. We were approached by Ames because I think they were interested in having it like that again. Okay. So when COVID hit, we ran into some manufacturing problems. Okay. We are based in Houston, Texas. All
Okay.
our engineering, Brian, Joe, our engineering team, our designers, we're all in Houston. Um, we manufacture, we get parts globally sourced. There's global sourcing and manufacturing happening at all levels of tool manufacturers. And we're one of those. We work with, we've got a factory in China, Taiwan.
Yeah, and before everybody's quick to judge, that phone in your pocket is probably, there's probably a lot of aspects of that phone that was sourced outside of the United States.
Well, and it's not as simple as that anymore, guys. Like, I remember, I mean, we've been around here long enough, right? When we first saw things being made in China, for example, and all of us red-blooded Americans were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna lose all these jobs to China and this, that, and the other. You know what? Hey, it's happened. Let's face it, like, it has happened. But every poll you put out there, if you ask about price, most people will say, well, I wish it was cheaper. Like, seriously, you put out all the polls and the questionnaires, and the number one thing that most people want to answer is they want to put in their 2 cents about pricing, so that in hopes that this poll and this survey actually works, it lowers their pricing. I mean, no, but seriously, like, we've ran so many polls over the years. That's the number one thing that nobody skips, is lower the price.
Right.
So anyway, in not all manufacturing, no matter where it's done, whether, I don't care which country does it, not all manufacturing is equal, right? I mean, you can't just throw your product into, call someone up on Alibaba and say, hey, I want to buy that product. Can you just put my name on it and ship it over here? I'll buy a container,
Right.
It's not going to work out very well for you that way. In the 80s, a guy named Joe Lin, who's a good friend of mine, I mean, a solid human being. And the only reason I'm working with SurPro right now, because the guy's money. He's just that guy, right? Now he's Chinese. He wasn't born here. He was born in China. And in the 80s, he migrated over here in the 80s. And he went to school and got his degree here and, decided to live in Houston, Texas. So a Chinese guy ends up in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen Joe wear a cowboy hat, but he would look good in one.
Sure.
And now he's got a family, right? He's raised a family. These are American-born Chinese children, right? In America, we've got all nationalities in America. That's what makes us Americans. So he's got a couple kids that have decided, we're going to follow dad into the family business. Now, that's pretty cool too. If you're a dad, if you're a dad listening to this podcast, I mean, that's kind of the ultimate. My kids are probably not following me into the drywall world of business, right? But if you're a dad and your kids, like the Gilbert girls, like Gilbert Taping, those 2 girls, man, they've been doing drywall for like 7 years. And well, they're kind of following in the footsteps of their old man, right? I think. I mean, I don't know how to put it, but that's pretty cool. Like,
well, I haven't announced it yet too, but I interviewed them on Tuesday, so their episode will drop after this one. Finally, we got the Gilbert.
Okay.
Gilbert
Taping.
Then
I'm definitely going to listen to that one. Anyway, I'm just saying it's kind of the ultimate thing, probably, I would think, as a dad, unless, you're like, hell no, girls, stay out of this trade. Don't follow me. It's been a heartbreaker, but other than that, if they want to and they give it all they've got, I mean, they're going to do great. Those girls, they're great.
They're great.
Yeah. So, and it's not often that you see, I mean, I would have to say that the drywall world has been a a man's game for a long time, right? It's
Oh
a
yeah.
physical labor, dirty,
Yep.
hard work.
They're coming into focus more. We've got this like movement. I've interviewed several women on the Drywall podcast. The cool thing I think about the women in the trade is that they're starting to, with the aid of social media, they're starting to band together, and
Yeah.
that volume on women in the trade is getting turned up because now all of a sudden we have this outlet where we can all communicate with each other and we can see these women who are crushing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and their social media is off the hook,
Yeah.
and then now all of a sudden
Yeah, and
they're becoming
shout out to Lydia, Drywall
yeah,
Shorty, shout out to Teak, those
yep,
drywall chicks. I mean,
right,
and there's a ton more out there
yep,
that if I knew, I would drop them right now. I
yeah,
don't, I'm not, my recall's not great. But when COVID hit, a lot of manufacturers had problems, right? I mean, of course, the whole this thing, this terrible disease, whatever
yeah,
virus, um, originated in we believe China, right? So that whole country was super shut down. It affected everyone's ability to get product. And if you had manufacturing set up over there, like forget about it. We ran into major production issues, like unbelievable, actually. Like I would have never guessed that we would have been so hit so hard.
right,
So we had come out with a new line. We had updated our line. We had made some new innovations, improvements, just changed up and gave ourselves a little leg to stand on. Looked pretty good. The stilts were crushing it. We sold out. We sold a lot of stilts. We sold out. And you know what? We couldn't get any, we couldn't produce anymore. We were shut
yeah,
down.
yeah,
So that was crazy because here we are, we kind of come out on fire with our new models, new line, and now we're dead in the water.
yeah,
We were in Ames. Now, I didn't know this. I'm not the guy that's been talking with, communicating with Ames. Got really nobody over there at this point. Know some of the guys from the past years ago, but nobody over there except these people that I just meet on this trip. And these are
yeah,
just managers and I just met them, right? So,
sure,
but come to find out, I'm like, I'm questioning, well, guys, like, weren't we selling to Ames? Because I just went in these stores and I don't see any SurPro stilts in here. And here we are coming in and doing product knowledge training on stilts, but I don't see our stilts for sale here. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Is this
yeah,
this can't be a new venture, right? So then I'm talking to my team and my sales guy, and he's like, look, we were in Ames in a big way. But then when we were out of stock, I mean, I swear, guys, we were out of stock for, I don't even want to say how long. I
yeah,
mean, I'm surprised that we're still standing, okay?
right,
Because we have no stilts for such a long time. Um, our factory was shut down. We had to set up a new one. It was messy.
yeah,
So, hey, the last thing a retailer wants is for you to stop stocking them. In fact, if you're on the shelves of a Home Depot, for example, and you leave them high and dry, and they've built out lanes and aisles for your product and end caps for your product,
yeah,
Home
yeah,
Depot, and then you don't stock them, if you run out, they start charging you, right? They'll charge you for that space, and it will add up so fast that it's enough to put certain companies out of business, right?
And Amazon does the same thing. If you like sell product through Amazon and your product's not moving fast enough, they'll
Yeah,
charge.
they
There's like
put it into a
charges.
different status, and then they
Yeah,
start
yeah,
charging you for the shelf
yeah.
space and
But
all of that.
they'll sell your stuff for a fee. So that's the scam with Amazon.
Well, so anyway, I'm kind of coming in. I'm a little green. I see. Okay. Um, okay. Well, let's just share. Actually, Livia, Lynn, Joe's daughter, and I hit the streets. We hit the Amazons, and Livy did most of the talking. I actually held an iPhone and tried to capture some of it, so that we can share it with their team, just for some internal kind of product
Would
knowledge.
SurPro consider doing like social media excerpts with that kind of thing? Would you interview the people at Ames? Would that be a good idea? Like that seems like prime social media
Oh,
content to me.
we did some of that, but
Okay.
I but then Livia went on vacation. Okay.
Okay.
And so she's been on vacation, and I think she may have just got back a day or two ago. So we'll go back and scrub through some footage and talk about how we're going to utilize it. Honestly, there was never any social media. It wasn't shot for social media. This was
Yeah.
just shot for AIM's internal team so
Okay.
that they can get product knowledge. I mean, that's what's truly important. We can air this stuff out on social, and we can do all these things, and we can get all these views and this, that, and the other. But the reality is, and it can be very helpful and help other people discover things that you would never reach otherwise. But when the rubber meets the road, the most important thing is anybody that's actually selling your product, right? They're
Yeah.
representing you and the
Yes.
product. You just want them to know all the ins and outs. You want them to understand it truly,
Yeah.
and which product to put which person on. For example, we have several models, right? Some models are better suited for heavier people versus lighter people, or sometimes people need to reach different heights of ceilings, and we have different sizing. Sometimes people have already had some experience with stilts, and they know how to use
Yeah.
them. They're professionals on stilts, and
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
times there's new users, right? So there's nuances between our product line where they're going to be able to successfully help a certain type of individual, right, ramp up.
Well,
With
that heavy thing is a big deal because I think that up until now, because you got Sean Ramsden, and then Chris Bush came down and helped me recently on a project, a popcorn ceiling cover. We were talking about stilts. He just got a set of SurPro stilts. Bigger guy, he's tall, he's big.
I wouldn't say that SurPro has a stilt that accommodates the heavier individual. Like, just, I would say that all of our stilts have right
Okay.
now, and like most every stilt in the marketplace that I
Okay.
know of, um, we have to put a weight rating on our stilts, right? You
Okay.
have to.
Okay.
So 225 pounds seems to be the industry standard weight rating, though. And I mean, that's that. And
Yeah.
so there's no stilt manufacturer out there that's going to recommend
Okay.
that anybody that's over that weight limit walks on stilts. You just can't. Now, but we know that I weigh more than 225, right?
Yeah.
We know that there's other users out there that are heavier than that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
are they going to take their chances and get up on stilts? A lot of them do. And
Okay.
The fact is, like, we want to be able to help everybody out. We don't want to have to restrict things, but the reality is if somebody's 280 pounds versus a guy that's 180 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And they've got full stilts fully extended. And what I mean by fully extended is our stilts have an inner and an outer tube, right? And you adjust the inner tube within the outer tube and you set the stilt height. We use double wing bolts to do that. A lot of stilts just have a single wing bolt, but
I like the double wing bolt. Most of the people listening to the Drywall podcast understand having your stilts extended all the way out.
Yeah. So if you extend them all the way, it leaves a little room inside the stilt to get connected, right? There's not as much tubing up there.
Yeah.
So if you had to perform some quick circus act movement to save yourself from falling, let's say you get in motion and whatever, you trip, slip, there's some kind of hazard. It happens, guys. There are hazards on top sites, and there might be mud on the ground. There might be water spilled by the mud where you were mixing. There might be an extension cord laying across. Whatever it is, you can find yourself in a world of trouble if you real quickly, right? You can fall. People fall. So in this case, if you have a 280-pound guy versus a 180-pound guy with fully extended stilts and you bobble and you're on your way down, that's a lot of extra force, right? You're pushing against to try to either, put a stilt out and try to stop yourself, like put the brakes on, and if you got 280 pounds pushing behind the brakes, right, versus 180 pounds, you got more trouble to deal with. So in any event, there's a lot of different things you can do to be safer on stilts as an end user, but there's also things that a manufacturer can do, right, to try and make stilts stronger, build some redundancies in the safety, change little tweaks here and there that maybe make the stilts naturally a little safer.
Sure.
But I think one thing that I think is important is that we have to recognize that there are people out there that are over the weight capacity. They're over 225 pounds.
Okay.
They're going to be holding tools like an automatic taper full of mud. How much does that weigh? 50 pounds.
And not to discredit the force of if I'm pushing a box or a tool against the wall, I'm also adding force as well. So
so I would say
SurPro does not condone unsafe practices, outside of the regulations that are clearly printed and advertised on their products.
That being said, well, what's the next step? What's the evolution of this? Where does the innovation take place? What can we do? What can we do to get a 300-pound weight limit? And that's the other thing. It's like 225 pounds is a weight limit. Well, you don't want to stop there, right? Like if we have to print 225 pounds, I mean, we still need to account for a little extra weight beyond that because we know that people will push it, right? So, but how much more? Is it another 60 pounds? I mean, how much more weight?
Well, it's been
So
pretty cool watching Sean Ramsden walk. You guys gave Sean a set of stilts,
yeah,
and he's just flourishing with them. And I think it's giving,
well,
it's
yeah.
inspiring people to realize that the value of stilts. But I mean, stilts are tough, man. Are they outlawed in like California? Is that still a thing?
Well, they they're not approved by OSHA in California. So
Okay, all right.
you're not going to find large drywall companies
Okay.
wearing stilts in California. You're not going to find union contractors wearing
Right.
stilts in California. But you may find outlaws wearing stilts in California. So to be able to say, are they outlawed? Well, yeah, because maybe
Right.
it's the outlaws that are wearing them.
Yeah.
They're,
You should come up with a set of stilts called the Outlaws.
yeah. Well, I'll leave that to the outlaws, but it's not a bad name. But actually, I brought this up. Um, you know, big guys will stress out some stilts sometimes.
Yeah.
It usually happens. Um, it's not happening as much when they're just walking on them and they're
Yeah.
straight up but when they push them to their limits, like, I mean, Sean is an amazing dude. I love
Yeah.
Sean. The dude is just solid. He's so
Yeah.
excited about all this. He's trying so I mean, he's trying hard. He's like really trying to help out. I think he shares that mentality, which is, hey, I'm here to help. I'm going to try to help everybody out. I'm going to treat everybody equally as
Yeah.
cool, whatever. Sean's just a super cool guy, and I love seeing his progression in drywall. Like, he's been telling me, man, I am kicking ass on your stilts. I love your stilts. They're so comfortable, these kinds of things. But at
Yeah.
the same time, man, he's a big guy, and he finds himself in a tight situation, and he could overstress these stilts pretty easily. So,
Yeah.
uh,
He's
you know,
he I watch him on the stilts though, and he's pretty careful.
well, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna send Sean another pair of stilts. So he's kind of jumped through the gamut. We started him off on a 1624
Okay.
S2 aluminum with I put the rocker leg bands on them. Those are an upgraded leg band that you're only going to get on an S2X still out of the box.
I think I
Uh,
have the rocker leg band.
yeah, I think you do. And
Yeah.
but you just got the upgraded like stilt right out of the box. You got the
Fuck
top
yeah.
model,
They're
but we
great.
sell other models, and you can upgrade the leg bands to the other model. It's a secondary purchase. And in
Okay.
Sean's case, we don't offer an S2X and a 1624 height. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a taller still, 2640. But in Sean's case, since he was just starting off and he just really wanted to hit 8 and 9 foot ceilings, and he's already a
Yeah.
tall guy, right? It's like
Yeah.
6'3", 280 pounds. So anyway, and all of our stilts are 225-pound weight limit. We but hey, Sean needs stilts. Every other stilt out there has the same weight capacity. So hey, what do we do here?
If you're
Anyway,
gonna be an outlaw, wear SurPro
if you're
stilts
if you're gonna be an outlaw,
because they're the safest.
yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, and I think we can, and we
You're
can
gonna have to get
also,
the attorneys for SurPro to watch the final episode before it airs. Hey, I bought
yeah,
these SurPro stilts and fell.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
boy.
here's the reality is falling on stilts. There's a lot of stilt brands out there. There's another brand out there that, I mean, trust me, man. people fall on all brands, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Oh
people
yeah.
get seriously hurt,
Oh yes.
injured. And when I say seriously, I mean it doesn't get more serious. Okay. And fortunately, we've managed to have a pretty good track record. Okay. But when something goes wrong on stilts, when we say we are safety focused, it truly means there's a few components on our stilts that are different than other stilts, that in a worst case scenario, we have some redundancy built throughout our stilts that are going to help you fare a bad situation a lot better than a stilt that doesn't have these features. Okay.
Okay.
So and that's true. We have patents that, we can get into the nuts and bolts of it all, but
I've walked lots of stilts. The SurPro stilts are the best that I've walked. I mean the toe spring, the double
well,
sided. I was a
the
little
toes,
I was a
yeah.
little nervous about the double sided with the strap. You got to load from the front. That's a little different. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
like them. They're
interesting.
comfortable. They're really comfortable.
Well, you're not gonna jump up, Gilbert Taping did a video where Kayla
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
standing here and just jumps right up
yeah,
on a single-sided pair of S1X magnesium SurPro stilts, right? She just jumps right up,
yeah.
straps in, and she's ready to go. I don't know how old Kayla is, and I'm not going to be the one that you know, tells another gal's age online, but I'm saying I'm gonna just say she's younger,
Yeah.
she's athletic, she
Hmm.
does this every day for a living, at the highest level, right?
Yeah.
So she might do it that way, and there might be other people out there that way. But if I'm going to go train you in product safety and product knowledge videos, we're not going to show someone how to jump up like an acrobat and jump into these things. Like, first off, nobody, there's very few people that have Kayla's superhuman strength, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Secondly, just sit down, take that break for a second, catch your breath. Go ahead, it's okay. Catch your breath for a second, have a
Yeah.
seat, strap into your stilts, make sure you take a look at them and you check all your nuts and bolts, and you make sure everything's nice and tight and right, ready for action, and check them out. And you know what? If they're caked in drywall mud and they've just been sitting in a corner collecting dust for a couple months because you haven't needed stilts for a while, and there's paint all over them because overspray got on them, mud is caked, and you can't see your stilts, take a pressure washer to them or whatever. Just take a mud bucket of water and a sponge, and let's clean them off a little bit. Let's take a closer look at them. Let's
It's really good
let's make
advice.
sure they're tightened up and ready to
Yeah.
go. Let's
Yeah,
throw
but
a little
it's good advice because we do take our stilts for granted. People use stilts every day, and it is piece of safety equipment. If your stilts aren't dialed, if those wing nuts aren't tightened, you run the risk of serious injury. And I
yeah, or if
and
there's a bolt missing, how many, until somebody does something in great volume, I don't care what it is. Like, in my youth, I was a bicycle messenger. Before that, I just rode bicycles,
like
right?
like
Um,
Quicksilver. Remember the movie Quicksilver?
yeah, but yeah, I do. Let's talk 10. I'm not going to go start talking 10 speeds now, but the for
Was that
example, if
Kevin
you're a
Bacon?
bicycle messenger and you're putting 40 to 80 miles a day on your bicycle,
Oh,
you're going to run through parts,
he was
right?
tuning his bike all the time, man.
Yeah. So you gotta pay attention, make sure your stuff is up to snuff, run the safety check through them, make sure bolts are tight and there's no bolts missing, these kind of things. There's no cracks, there's no stress cracks. You just got to check them out. And that might mean you need to clean them, wash them off so you can see them a
Mm-hmm.
little bit better. Lube them up,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Now, wait a second. I was taught early on,
Mm.
do not spray WD on the extender part. It over time it gums them up. What I've found is don't spray that stuff with WD. Keep them dry. And you're still that shaft part will last longer and be better. And I've found this to be true.
You don't want excessive, you don't want excessive water inside them, that kind of thing. But so you don't want to just necessarily dunk them in a 55-gallon barrel of,
Right. Right.
water. Just wipe them off and clean. You just want to make sure you can see anything and everything. You just don't want areas that are caked up that you can't see. You want to make sure that your dual action spring is able to move effectively and it's not caked up with hard mud and blocking your spring from being able to flex properly.
Right. Right.
Just overall, you just need to look at it a little bit more, mechanical at times and
Uh-huh.
treat it like a tool that you want to last. These kinds of things.
Brandon Hunter, SurPro Stilts. Also, dude, thanks for making the time to meet with me again. I do like that cup. Um, on the Drywall Podcast, I love getting this side of the industry. Sort of, you've got like all the dirt, you've got like some of the cool industry dirt, on where these companies came from. If you haven't listened to episode 99, part one, Brandon Hunter, this guy's like, helped build like, and also, I was going to say stilts.com. Was that challenging to get, or did you secure that? Did you secure that? That seems like a pretty hard to get.com. Am I wrong?
No, this hard to get.com, this was SurPro's been around
Okay.
since the start, right?
Okay.
So since the start, I mean, if SurPro's been around since 1996 and Google came out in
Oh, okay.
1998,
So
I mean,
they jumped on stilts.com pretty quick.
SurPro's just the name in stilts. They've been in stilts. There's really been only one other company out there that has had the long-standing Durastilt, right?
Right,
But
right.
um, for the most part, if you went head to head and you kind of put a Dura 3 next to an S1, an S1X, whatever,
Yeah.
we could, and, maybe we'll do a head to head. I'm not going to say that one.
A running race with
Yeah.
300-pound
Maybe
men.
we should, I don't, maybe we can do kind of a head to head. I mean, I don't care. The most
Uh,
important thing is that who's ever on these stilts feels comfortable, right? I
yeah.
don't care what brand they're on. I don't, whatever. They feel
Well,
comfortable.
hey,
Um,
take it from the interviewer, Nick Harmon. I went from Durstilts to SurPro, and I like him better, hands down. So, for what it's worth,
well,
we did
thank you,
probably
Nick. Thank you, Nick. I
probably
appreciate that.
1,500 square feet of popcorn ceiling just recently. I
Hmm.
was running around on those fucking things like an idiot. And, I've vetted them, you know, for the most part over the last, since you've given them to me, I've vetted them a little bit. I like them.
Well, I can
Uh,
tell you that that is awesome. I can say that, we've had calls from out of the blue from some of the largest drywall contractors, national drywall contractors in America, several locations, huge companies, that call us for a reason and want some help. Maybe there's been some traditional kind of stilts that have been around for a while.
Yep.
But they're running into a need to have a safer stilt in their workforce,
Right.
and get some training and these kinds of things. Like, we get these kind of calls, and we are going to keep moving,
I
and
like
we're going to
that.
keep innovating, and we're going to try to continue to elevate the game. And those who stand with us,
Stand taller. Stand taller.
Those who work tall and stand with us.
Also, I just wanted to ask Brandon Hunter if you had we could do a quasi pearl of wisdom. Do you have anything that you would like to offer? I love all of your stuff about connecting with people and energy, and I get that about you. I really appreciate your time and your energy. Oh, two things. We'll get to the pearl of wisdom, but you offered to give away, and we were talking about giving away a set of stilts on the Drywall podcast. SurPro Stilts is going to sponsor a month of the Drywall podcast. I just need to get a script from you. I would probably say August would be that month, but I was like, let's give away a pair of stilts. And I was like, we could give away a cheap pair. And you were like, no way. We'll give away like whatever pair somebody wants. And so,
Yeah.
So you'll go live on here. That's still in play. We're going to do a giveaway, and
whatever drywall stilts somebody wants.
Okay. Your high-end drywall stilts they're pretty pricey.
Like 400, around 4 something.
Yeah. And they're built the top model, but that's what we're talking about. So you can pick a set, and you have the tall boys,
so
whatever.
Basically, our sets we have S1 and S2. The S is for SurPro. The 1 is for single sided. Okay, a single leg pull. So anything that's S1 is going to have a single leg pull. If you add the X onto it, an S1X, it's got the flexion foot, right? So an S2 would be dual leg pull. Pretty simple, right?
Okay.
S1, single leg pull. S2, 2 leg pulls, right? If you add an X onto it, it's the flexion foot, right? So that's the spring on the toe. So
I would say on my, I do
S1X and S2X.
Okay.
As far as that's concerned, you also can choose either aluminum or magnesium main bodies on the stilt. So you can get an S1 in aluminum or magnesium, an S1X in aluminum and magnesium, S2, same thing, S2X, same thing. And then we have throughout that gamut of models from, the S1 and the S2 series, X or no X, aluminum or magnesium, you have different height adjustable sizes.
Okay.
So the smallest would be a 16 to 24. The next size up would be a 20 to 30 inch. And then the next size would be a 26 to 40. And we do have a new 38 to 54 that's available as an S2 model. And it's available in aluminum. So
S2 only on the tall boys.
S2 aluminum.
Yep. Okay. Very cool. And then your pearl of wisdom to the drywall community, Brandon. You have one shot, buddy. You got one shot. You've been in this industry a long time. What would you tell all these crazy drywallers if you were in an auditorium with like, 20,000 drywallers?
What I would say is keep an open mind. You never know where the next great solution is going to come from. Don't stay closed-minded into the old school mentalities where Coke and Pepsi started the battle, right? The battle between Coke and Pepsi. That's all that was there.
Right.
But we now know there's coconut water, Red Bull, Rockstar, Monster, a bunch of health conscious drinks out there.
Yeah.
Like the beverage
All
market,
the kombuchas.
the beverage market today is nuts.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck in the old Coke, Pepsi mentality, and don't close any doors because of that. Keep yourself wide open to learn from whomever. So you're going to finding your favorite influencers, content creators in drywall, to some of the favorite brands that you come across or favorite products. Just don't leave yourself closed-minded to not search further and be open. Be open to helping everybody grow. This is a small, talk about community. Okay.
Okay.
If
I like it.
you're a content creator, Nick, and
Yeah.
and not just a content creator, but product developer, a manufacturer, a drywaller, right? A drywall finisher. You wear many hats, right? And I would say that get with people who are willing to be open to share in the growth of all. Don't close yourself. Don't limit your opportunities. You know, if you get yourself into exclusive deals, one side or the other, say a manufacturer comes to you and says, well, you can only sell our brand or one other brand, right?
Right.
Right. I mean, these kind of things have really happened in the past.
Yeah.
You got to choose wisely and you got to really look at, well, what's best for you and, do what feels right. But the bottom line is, try to help as many people as you can, right? And in that, I believe you'll get what you need. Hey, we're all in this together. We're in the drywall community. The bottom line is let's try to help each other out. Let's try to help each other out. Let's try to help this community out. Whether you're an online business or you're a store that someone can walk into, the bottom line is this: that end user, that person that needs a solution that day, they might need to buy it online. They might not be able to find something at their local store. They might not be able to get it quick enough. Like, hey, whatever's going to help somebody, let it be. Help. Just keep helping it out.
Yeah.
Just keep helping. I mean, don't try to force some product or some solution or some platform or some tool down somebody's neck,
Right.
and not give them a way out. Like they're going to figure out what's best for them. And no one needs to die on the sword for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, because even if you're out there crushing it, it doesn't mean that it has to come at somebody else's expense to being crushed, right?
Right.
Like we're all human beings. I mean, hey, fresco is the best. And if you put anything else on your wall, then forget.
Well, it's interesting too. Like I listen to a lot of the Apple versus Microsoft, where like Apple wouldn't talk trash about their competitors. I try to steer towards like I created a product that is going to help drywallers make money. It's fast, it's efficient, and it's affordable, and it's easy to use. Like I just try to stay in that lane. I believe in it. Is it better? I don't know. That's for the consumer to decide.
Well, it is. It comes down to the application, right? Because sometimes you need a Humvee, right? Sometimes you need a
Yeah.
Humvee. I've never really come across a situation where I've needed a Humvee, but the bottom line is there are reasons why they exist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some people need to traverse that type of terrain, right? Maybe it's
Right.
the army. Maybe it's the army, okay? But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
army needed them. And then there's some other people that, you know, they live 35 miles away from work and they don't want to put, they don't want to put gasoline in their car and they want to plug their car in at night and bam,
Right.
some kind of hybrid or plug-in electric is great for them. And
Right.
then there's a guy who needs a truck, right? Because he's got to throw a bunch of stuff in the back and he's not going to go spend $100,000 and wait on a waiting list for a cyber truck, and he needs to put on more miles because sometimes he's crossing county lines and you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So there's a truck for him. There's a bunch of solutions out there that when we start focusing on that individual and what their case study is, we're going to find that there's more than one ways to get it done.
Yep.
It's really interesting, but
It's been cool.
platforms. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you and I have gotten to connect through this means. I mean, we knew each other, but isn't it cool? Like you and I knew each other, briefly, but through, me bugging you about being on the podcast, we've gotten to have this like connection. Like that's what it's about. It's so cool. And now like I can call Brandon or I can text you and be like, dude, give me a call. I just want to shoot the shit for an hour. I know Brandon can talk and I know he has lots of good information and we can chat, that's so cool to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, it is kind of weird, because then this lasts forever on the interwebs and or whatever,
Yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
as long as you pay your hosting account for your podcasting,
Not
whatever,
even, dude.
it
It's on
goes out.
YouTube. Shit's
Yeah,
on
there you go.
YouTube. It's like it ain't
Yeah.
going nowhere.
Yeah, so there you go. And look, we all put on different hats. I think last time you were talking about this melon cap I was wearing but figuratively, we all wear a lot of hats. I'm
Yes.
in an environment with you today where I can wear a hat, I throw on a t-shirt, I'm
Yeah.
sitting upstairs. I don't have to have my boardroom. This might not be the same Brandon that you get in a boardroom pitching
Right.
something or
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I get to
I
be
like that about the Drywall
really
podcast. I have to keep it that way. Like I was thinking, even if somebody like offered me a ton of money for Fresco, I would, and they wanted the podcast too, like, because that's like a little bargaining chip. I would say it's pretty cool. It's pretty popular now. I would have to keep it the same way. I got to be able to cuss. I have to be able to say what I don't care if I'm working for whoever. I got to be able to say what I need to say. The Drywall podcast will always be raw. I will always want to interview people in the trades, people in drywall that are in the trenches doing the work. Those are my favorites. Um, and that's what makes the podcast awesome.
yeah.
Super cool, dude. We will talk soon. I'll get some information from you. We're going to have a stilt giveaway. I'll give more information on that, but I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, sir.
Okay, man. Well, let's touch base soon. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks
I'm
for
looking
being on.
forward to watching your next Gilbert Girls one and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it'll be exciting. All right, take care, bud. I'll talk to
All
you
right,
soon.
bud. Talk to you. Bye. Huge shout out to Brandon for being with us on the Drywall Podcast today. I know you're a busy man, and we've been getting a lot of feedback about how much people have enjoyed your story. So I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you coming on and look forward to talking with you more in the future. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a sweet swag bucket from our friends over at CSR just for coming on to the Drywall Podcast. If for some reason you're listening to this episode and you did not receive your swag bucket from CSR, please let me know so that we can get you one. The Drywall Podcast can be listened to in its entirety on your favorite platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and also you can watch the entire interview on YouTube if you are inclined. Thank you so much for joining us on the Drywall Podcast today. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have an amazing weekend, week, year, month, whatever, just as long as you remember to keep drywalling.